Katie Matthews' private eye. Katie was inconsolable just 3 years after she had undergone the growth treatment. Without the help of Dr. Ronnie, she would have never made it to the joint funeral. Alicia and Grandma had been on their way to pick up Katie from a karate class when the accident happened. The two people Katie loved most in the world had been killed by an 18-wheeler that simply lost its brakes. Katie sobbed loudly as both caskets were lowered side by side to their graves. In Katie's mind, her life was also lowered into the graves with them. 3 days later, Katie walked into the bureau and quit, without explanation. Katie knew that she would be useless in the field in her current situation. There was no way Katie would endanger her fellow agents in her current state of mind. Luckily, money would not be a problem for Katie. She was the beneficiary of both Alicia's and Grandma's life insurance. The amount was just over $400,000. The settlement from the trucking company would be twice that. Katie did the only thing she knew to do. She reverted to baby Katie and her nursery. Dr. Ronnie visited Katie 6 weeks after the funeral just to check up on her. It took at least 5 minutes before Katie even answered the door. Katie was an absolute mess. She was wearing both a wet and messy diaper and did not seem the least concerned about it. Ronnie then noticed the condition of the apartment. Simply put, it was a pigsty. The kitchen was even more disgusting than the apartment. To be honest, the whole apartment stank of wet and messy diapers. Ronnie visited with Katie for a while, then said her goodbyes. The next day, Ronnie started interviewing nannies for Katie. Ronnie was very happy with her choice for Katie's new nanny. Her name was Gretchen. She was from Sweden and was 35 years old. She was also one of the largest women Ronnie had ever met, at approximately 6 feet 4 inches and 275 pounds. Her resume was excellent. She had a great deal of experience taking care of children of all ages. Ronnie explained the whole situation to Gretchen, including the fact that she and Gretchen probably would not be welcome when Katie figured out what was going on. She told Gretchen at first it would be imperative that she treated Katie exactly like the baby she wanted to be right now. She explained she wanted some routine in Katie's life. Then she was slowly to try and get Katie interested in other things, like the news and foreign affairs, anything at all that would make her use her mind and face the world again. Ronnie also explained that the bank, including a charge account at the local supermarket, paid all of Katie's bills. Ronnie had arranged for Gretchen to use the account, even though that had taken her FBI badge to pull off. Ronnie told Gretchen that if she needed money for anything else, to use her own and bring Ronnie the receipts. Ronnie would be paying Gretchen's salary herself, at least until Katie came to her senses and realized this was for her own good. Ronnie grabbed her car keys and headed out the door to pick up Gretchen. Today was the day they invaded Katie's apartment. Ronnie had been ringing the doorbell for about 10 minutes and Katie still would not answer. So Ronnie found the landlord, flashed her badge and got a key. Ronnie could not believe her eyes. In only a little over a week, the apartment even looked and smelled worse. Gretchen and Ronnie found Katie sitting on the floor in the kitchen playing Russian roulette with her .38 snub nose. Katie, Ronnie assumed, had 1 bullet in the gun. She would spin the cylinder, then put it to her head and pull the trigger. "Katie, please baby, put your toy down and come here." Katie looked up to see Dr. Ronnie and this huge woman standing there. "It's not a toy, Dr. Ronnie. I like to think of it as my salvation. It's the only way to end the pain. One thing is for sure, I am going out with a bang." Katie then giggled and spun the cylinder again and started to put it to her head. Gretchen quickly stepped forward. "Give me that gun, young lady, now or else." Katie almost instinctively minded the woman with the booming voice and handed her the gun. Gretchen handed the gun to Ronnie, and Ronnie quickly unloaded it, finding, as she suspected, 1 bullet. She almost fainted when she notices the marks on it. The firing pin had obviously hit the bullet several times. Through the grace of God, the bullet was a dud. Katie, realizing what she had done, stood up and looked at the two women. Her diaper was full and almost hanging to her knees. Katie herself was a filthy mess. "Why are you two here bothering my game?" I did not invite you. Get out of my apartment now or I will kick both your butts. Gretchen stepped forward to Katie. She looked like a freaking giant. Now that little girl I would like to see. Katie had been trained to evaluate situations like this. She knew if she proceeded and made one mistake, Gretchen would simply overpower her. Just then Ronnie spoke up. Katie, this is your new nanny. Her name is Gretchen. I hired her to take care of you. Katie tried to walk out of the kitchen but Gretchen blocked her way. Get out of my way, Godzilla. I need to use the phone to call the police. Fine, go right ahead, said Ronnie, then I will make a couple phone calls too. When the police see the way you are living and acting, I should have no problem at all getting you committed to a sanitarium. Katie was pissed. Why are you doing this to me, Dr. Ronnie? I thought you were my friend. Sweetie, I am not doing this to you. I am doing it for you, because I am your friend. Katie thought for a second before she spoke. Okay, then Godzilla can stay, but you need to leave. I will agree to Godzilla only if you promise to get the hell out of my life and stay out of my business. Just get the fuck out. A tear fell from Ronnie's eye. She knew that Katie did not mean what she was saying, but it hurt anyway just the same. Okay, Katie, I will go for now, but you had better stick to your bargain, or I will have you committed. No problem, just get the hell out, you bitch. If I had not met you, none of this would have ever happened. I would never have been in karate class and Grandma and Alicia would still be alive. Now get your ass out of my life. Ronnie composed herself long enough to ask Gretchen if she had any questions, and then she left the apartment. She cried all the way to her office. In her heart she knew Katie did not mean the things she said, but in a way they were true. Gretchen went to get her bags. When she turned around, Katie was standing in front of her. On second thought, Godzilla, I don't think this is going to work out. Why don't you take your bags and get the fuck out too? Gretchen just stared at Katie for a moment, then reached out and grabbed her. Katie struggled, but before she knew it, the big bitch had thrown her over her shoulder. She carried Katie into the nursery and then the bathroom. She put her in the tub and removed her wet and messy diaper. She then rinsed off Katie's butt and noticed the terrible rash she had. Katie was screaming and complaining the whole time, but at no moment did she actually go into fight mode with Gretchen. Somehow she knew if she did, Gretchen would simply kick her butt. Once Gretchen had Katie dried off, she picked her up again and carried her in the living room. Sitting on the sofa with a naked Katie sitting on her lap, Gretchen began to speak. Young lady, rather you like it or not, Nanny is now in charge. You will mind me or your behind will wish you had. Speaking of just that, your behavior with Dr. Ronnie and your language was totally unacceptable. I will not tolerate rudeness or profanity from the children in my care. Nanny then flipped Katie across her lap. This baby girl is so you will remember in the future. Nanny then gave Katie 10 sharp smacks across her bare bottom. Katie was bawling like a baby before Nanny's hand landed on her behind the second time. Nanny's hands were huge and strong. The pain in Katie's butt was incredible. It actually got better as the spanking continued because Katie's butt was becoming numb. Katie continued to cry even after Nanny placed her on her hip and carried her to the changing table. She had her head on Nanny's shoulder and Nanny was patting her back gently and trying to calm her down. Nanny actually walked her around the nursery for 5 or 6 minutes, almost chanting to her, "It's over, baby, it's over. Nanny's here to take care of you now. Go ahead, let it out." Katie suddenly realized that she was not crying any longer about the spanking. She was simply letting out the pain she had been going through for so long. She held Nanny's neck tightly and somehow sensed a security in her life for the first time in a long time. Nanny laid Katie on the changing table, then put the safety rail up and went to get one of her bags. She returned with the bag and opened it, revealing among other things the largest, thickest cloth diapers Katie had ever seen. Nanny also came up with a tube of her favorite rash creme and liberally applied it to Katie's rash. She then slid one of the thick cloth diapers under Katie and pinned it shut. Nanny then picked Katie up and carried her to her playpen. Sitting her down in the playpen, Nanny smiled. "Baby, you play here, okay? Nanny has lots of cleaning to get started on." Katie asked if she could have cartoons on and Nanny turned on the TV and handed her the remote. It took Nanny 3 days to get the apartment clean and smelling fresh again. She had spent most of the first day searching the apartment to make sure Katy had no more weapons. She ended up finding 6 more handguns and several knives plus enough ammunition to fight a small war. While Katy was napping, she called Ronnie and asked her to pick them up. She also asked that Ronnie bring her a couple of hasps and 2 padlocks. She would use those to lock up the kitchen knives in 2 drawers. Katy was finally not only getting used to her routine but also used to walking in these thick diapers. She had fallen on her butt like a toddler the few times she tried. Katy had been very well behaved since Nanny moved in, not even complaining when Nanny moved into Grandma's bedroom. That was about to change a bit. Katy was adamant that she did not want to go outside. Nanny was adamant that she was going to. Naturally, Nanny won. Before Katy knew it, she was standing at the park wearing a disposable diaper and a onesie snapped between her crotch. Katy spotted a police officer and feared she would be arrested for indecent exposure. He walked right up to her and smiled. "Are you Katy Matthews of the FBI?" Katy did not say a word. The officer smiled. "No, of course not. Well, go play, sweetie, have fun." He then patted Katy on her diapered butt and sent her on her way. Katy finally forgot what she was wearing and tried to have a good time in the park. She ended up playing on the swings and teeter-totter with a little girl named Daphne. Daphne told Katy she was 7 and asked Katy how old she was. Katy had just turned 23 but told Daphne she was 13. Daphne simply commented that Katy was the first 13-year-old she had ever seen in diapers. Then they just went back to playing. Nanny checked her watch and then called Katy saying it was time to go. First she checked Katy's diaper. Finding it wet, she laid Katy down on the park bench and changed her. Katy cried the whole time. She had never been so humiliated in her life. Nanny then walked Katy to McDonald's for lunch. After they ate, she sent Katy to play in the fun land for about 30 minutes. They then headed home. Sensing that Katy was tired, Nanny picked her up and carried her the last 3 blocks. Katy was sound asleep sucking her pacifier when they finally reached the apartment. 3 weeks had passed since Nanny had become part of Katy's life. Even though Katy was not ready to admit it, Katy was grateful to have her. Katy was clean all the time now and rash-free. She had gained back the weight she had lost. Nanny was a wonderful cook. The truth was, for the most part, Katy was a happy baby. Sure, sometimes Katy misbehaved and did not mind. Even then, Nanny usually swatted her but 3 or 4 times and stuck her in her timeout chair in the corner. Not that Katy could not feel Nanny's swats even through her thick diapered butt. Katy actually loved her trips to the park with Nanny. She had made many new friends and was best friends with Daphne. Katy did not even mind since it got warmer. She was often taken to the park wearing nothing but a diaper and a t-shirt. Katy was perfectly content spending the rest of her life as a baby. She hardly ever thought about her time as an FBI agent. Katy did think about one thing: the way she had talked to and treated Dr. Ronnie. Katy was thinking about this laying in her crib, having just finished her nap. Katy stood up in her crib and called for her nanny. Nanny walked into the nursery with a big smile on her face. Did Nanny's baby have a nice nap? Katy held up her arms smiling as Nanny lifted her from the crib and carried her to the changing table. Just as Nanny was finishing pinning her fresh diaper in place, Katy began to speak. "Nanny, what are we having for supper tonight?" Surprised by the question, Nanny answered, "Beef stew and banana pudding." "Why do you ask, baby?" "I was just wondering if you would have enough for 3. I would like you to invite a guest for me." Nanny smiled at Katy. Maybe this was the breakthrough she had been looking for. "Sweetie, your nanny will probably make enough for 6 or 7. Who would you like me to invite?" Katy held out her arms and Nanny picked her up. Katy then leaned in to whisper in Nanny's ear, "Dr. Ronnie, please." Ronnie hung up the phone after talking to Gretchen. She then called her secretary and told her to cancel her business dinner appointment that evening. The appointment was important but not nearly as important as Katy. Nanny dressed Katy in one of her prettiest party dresses. It was yellow and she had on ruffled yellow plastic panties to match. Nanny fixed Katie's pretty hair in a simple ponytail and tied a huge yellow ribbon in it.